Nächster.
Paul Bäumer.
Ich möchte noch nicht loslegen.
Wir sind jetzt an der Westfront.
Wieder mehr als 40.000 Tote allein in den letzten Wochen.
Es ist vorbei, Menschlichkeit. Ich bitte Sie um den Waffenstillstand.
When we talk about the devastating realities of war, few stories have managed to capture its raw intensity, its psychological weight, and the tragic cost of youthful idealism, quite like All Quiet on the Western Front. This 2022 adaptation of Erich Maria Remarque's world-renowned novel immerses us in the harrowing journey of Paul Bäumer, a young German soldier, and his comrades as they step into the maelstrom of World War I. From the first moments, the film confronts us with the intoxicating allure of war, a sentiment that grips many young soldiers at the start of their enlistment. Paul, like countless others of his generation, is initially swept up in the patriotic fervor that promises honor, brotherhood, and adventure. The early sequences of the film are imbued with this almost romanticized enthusiasm, where uniforms, camaraderie, and the notion of fighting for one's country seem to mask the coming horrors. Yet, beneath the surface, there is an undercurrent of tension, a quiet foreshadowing that the exhilaration of war is ephemeral and fragile, and that the trenches will soon strip away any illusions of glory. Edward Berger, the director, meticulously constructs a world that is at once historically authentic and viscerally immediate. The trenches are not just a backdrop, but a living, breathing entity that exerts constant pressure on the soldiers. Every detail, from the mud caking their boots to the claustrophobic labyrinths of the front lines, emphasizes the relentless and grinding nature of trench warfare. This is not a sanitized war story. It is an unflinching portrayal of what it means to endure prolonged violence, uncertainty, and fear. The camera lingers on moments of quiet dread as much as on moments of chaos, allowing viewers to feel the oscillation between the mundane and the catastrophic. A shared meal, a brief conversation, or a fleeting joke among soldiers can exist alongside sudden, brutal violence, underscoring how life and death are tangled in the trenches. Through this lens, the film conveys the psychological toll of war, illustrating how the constant presence of danger erodes humanity, optimism, and the capacity for hope. The character of Paul Bäumer serves as our emotional conduit into this world. His journey is as much internal as it is external, charting the transformation from a naive young man to a soldier whose understanding of life and death is irreversibly altered. Paul's relationships with his fellow soldiers are central to the narrative. Each comrade carries a distinct personality, reflecting the spectrum of human responses to trauma. Some cling desperately to humor or routine to stave off despair, while others crumble under the weight of fear and loss. The film portrays these dynamics with sensitivity and nuance, showing how bonds forged under fire become both lifelines and sources of heartbreak. When a friend falls, it reverberates through the group with devastating immediacy, reminding both Paul and the audience that every engagement has a personal, human cost. One of the most striking aspects of this adaptation is its commitment to depicting the unvarnished brutality of World War I. From artillery barrages to gas attacks, from hand-to-hand combat to the indiscriminate slaughter of soldiers, the film immerses viewers in the physical and emotional devastation of the front. The cinematography emphasizes both scale and intimacy. Sweeping shots reveal the expansive, desolate battlefields, while tighter frames capture individual expressions of terror, fatigue, and resolve. This juxtaposition creates a tension that mirrors the soldier's experience, always caught between the enormity of war and the intimate, immediate struggle to survive. The sound design complements this visual intensity, blending the roar of gunfire with the haunting silences between engagements, moments that allow for the weight of trauma to sink in. Berger's attention to these elements ensures that the audience not only witnesses the horrors of war, but feels them viscerally, forging a connection to the soldiers' lived reality that is as unsettling as it is compelling. As the narrative unfolds, the initial enthusiasm of Paul and his peers is steadily eroded by the relentless grind of combat. The film is careful to depict this psychological decline without resorting to melodrama. Instead, it emphasizes the cumulative impact of exposure to death, suffering, and moral compromise. Each encounter, each loss, chips away at their former selves, leaving behind a fragile shell of who they once were. Berger's direction highlights the small yet profound ways in which trauma manifests: a hesitation before firing, a moment of silence where laughter once existed, the quiet observation of a comrade's suffering that cannot be assuaged by words. The soldier's humanity persists, but it is constantly under siege, forcing both characters and audience to confront the question of what survives when war consumes everything else. In this sense, the film becomes a meditation on resilience and fragility, on how individuals navigate circumstances that test the limits of endurance, morality, and hope. Central to the story is the exploration of disillusionment, the transition from naive patriotism to a stark understanding of war's futility. Paul's transformation mirrors that of his generation, swept into conflict by societal pressures and promises of glory, only to find themselves confronted with the relentless randomness of death and destruction. Berger's adaptation captures this thematic core with precision, using narrative and visual storytelling to convey the contrast between expectation and reality. Moments of reflection, often set against the backdrop of hauntingly beautiful landscapes or the eerie calm of no man's land, underscore the incongruities of war. These sequences serve as visual metaphors for the internal conflicts of soldiers, the tension between memory and reality, between youthful ideals and the hard truths of survival, between the instinct to protect oneself and the compulsion to aid comrades. It is within these contrasts that the emotional power of the story resides, giving weight to every decision, every loss, and every fleeting moment of connection. The human cost of war is further underscored through Berger's careful attention to the experiences of those beyond the immediate battlefield. Letters from home, fleeting memories of civilian life, and the occasional glimpse of family and community juxtapose the chaos of the front with the ordinary rhythms of life that soldiers have been torn from. These contrasts amplify the sense of loss, not only of friends and comrades, but of innocence, identity, and the possibility of a future untainted by violence. The film emphasizes that the wounds of war are not confined to the battlefield. They reverberate through the psyche, leaving scars that are invisible yet profound. Paul's reflections on these losses, expressed subtly through dialogue and visual storytelling, invite viewers to consider the broader implications of conflict, both on those who fight and the world they leave behind. What makes this adaptation particularly compelling is its refusal to offer easy resolutions. There are no neat victories, no triumphant moments that absolve the cost of survival. Instead, the narrative is anchored in realism, portraying war as an unrelenting force that shapes and reshapes lives in ways that cannot be undone. Moments of hope are fleeting, yet they exist, often in the form of small gestures, shared meals, or the simple act of survival. These moments, however brief, provide a counterpoint to the pervasive despair, reminding viewers of the resilience of the human spirit even in the face of overwhelming adversity. Berger's approach respects the intelligence and emotional investment of the audience, presenting a story that is both devastating and profoundly human, compelling viewers to grapple with the complexities of history, morality, and survival.